All right, so I want to talk about something that maybe doesn't feel financial related, but I think really is. And so we're going to share a little bit of our story of wanting to get pregnant and having a little bit of an obstacle there.
Sure.
Maybe a significant obstacle. And as we talk about this, from the beginning, I just want to say that we're not claiming to have all the answers on this. And I don't, I've studied this in the Bible, and there are pieces of the answer, but there's not, I don't see a full understanding of how all this works. And so I don't know if anyone fully understands how this works, and you will understand what I mean when we get to it, this side of heaven. But we learned some significant lessons, both from what we experienced as well as what the Word says about this. And I just kind of want to share how all this ties into our money. And you're probably like, what the heck is he going to talk about? What's he talking about? So we're going to get there. Why don't you start maybe with telling some of our story?
Okay. So, we're talking about when I got pregnant. But I'm just going to go back a little bit before to kind of put a preface in there. So we started just like, any young couple, we're like, all right, it's time to have some babies. Like, let's do this. I think we're ready for kids. And it was a while, and it was like, nothing's really happening, which is common enough that it's like, all right, that's fine. But we kind of went down this road for a little while, and we're like, this is actually very weird that I'm not just getting pregnant. So we started talking to some doctors, and I did not have a peace with moving forward with that. And I don't even know how to explain that other than it just felt like this is just not the right thing to do.
Yeah, one particular path that one doctor recommended.
Right.
Yeah, we decided against.
We just decided against it. And it wasn't because I had a personal problem with it. I want to make that clear. It was just that something didn't feel right. So we didn't do that. And then the Lord led us to adoption. And I don't believe that it was, it wasn't for me because I wasn't getting pregnant. There was a different revelation there about adoption that I felt like the Lord gave me about his heart for it.
That we might not have gotten.
I do believe that we probably wouldn't have gotten it. And I thought, that's why. It's because he is calling us to adopt. And I would have never seen this before.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to the grocery store hungry and you buy a lot more things, because you're like, everything looks good. And I don't normally buy this, but it sounds really good right now because I'm hungry. I mean, it's the same type of thing. Where it was like, I probably would have never seen this before because I wasn't looking for it. Mm-hmm. So I absolutely love the process of adopting. I think we both did. We had two very different, very difficult, but also very beautiful, wonderful adoptions.
We did another podcast about that maybe a year ago or something. So you can go back and find that if you want to find more of the details of it.
Yeah. So that was really great. And I was like, this is just wonderful. Like I feel sorry for people who don't adopt because I feel like they're missing something about God.
Yep.
They're not understanding part of who he is and the love that he has.
That like we did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I say that not like, like everyone's like God's calling everyone to adopt. Okay. Yes. Just to be clear, but it is something that I just loved so much. And I do not see it as something lesser than at all. Yeah. I love it. So we did that. I thought, this is great. We have 2 kids. We've gone through this beautiful process. And I think at that point we were like, I think we're good. Like, I think the 2 kids is good.
We had what, a 1.5-year-old?
I don't think she was even 1.5.
So again,
I think
we're
she
still
had just turned 1. She had just turned 1 in May.
We
Her
had 2
birthday's
kids in diapers, right? Right? Probably.
No, just 1 in diapers because Alden was about 3. He was about 4. He was 4 years old at that point.
Anyway, we're still young kids.
Young kids. It's a lot. We're still not sleeping through the night, that whole thing. So we're in church one day and our pastor starts speaking this message about getting out of agreement with things. And I had never heard it put that way, where it is like, you've made an agreement with something that is not lined up with the Bible.
You believed a lie, you've spoken lies, you've whatever.
And in my mind, this is like, I'm stupid, right? Like something like that where it's like, this is clearly negative, but the word says I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And so it made it was kind of like black and white to me. But at the end of his message, like he said this whole thing. Talked about his own experience and all that stuff. And at the end of it, he said, all right, I want everyone to stand up. And instead of doing like an altar call, he's just said, I want you to sit there. When I say altar call, I mean like come up for prayer type of thing. He said, I want you to sit there and I want you to ask the Holy Spirit, is there anything I've made an agreement with that I need to come out of agreement with? And I almost rolled my eyes because I have lived a very wonderful, blessed Christian bubble life where, I mean, I sang Father Abraham in church. I know all the Bible stories.
All your life, you never really backslid.
Right. I never really backslid. I have just had a very, I would say, Christian bubble life. And so to me, I thought there can't possibly be anything there. I know what this is about. But I was like, he's asking us to do it. So, all right, Lord, I mean, is there anything that I need to know that I need to come out of agreement with? Almost in a way that was like, this isn't, there can't be anything.
Yeah,
and this isn't
you're pretty
real. Skeptical would be a great word. And so as I pray this, I'm immediately reminded of this time when my older sister and her husband, who they're really funny, and they love to like draw out a story and make it very dramatic. So I remember being in the hospital with the two of them, and they're telling me about the birth of their son, who was born the day before.
Yeah.
And they are doing the thing that they normally do. I mean, what is it? My brother-in-law has been known to say things like, I'd rather drink a cup of gasoline than, than have a Starbucks Frappuccino, stuff like that. You're like, come on. Okay. Starbucks isn't that bad. All right. But he just is, it's really funny. It's funny to talk to them. And so they did that with birth. Okay. So they're making it as dramatic as possible and, telling all these stories. And I'm holding their son and I say, oh man, well, that's it. I'm never having a baby. I was joking. I was playing into the thing that they were doing. Like it was just this like funny thing that was going on. And so I'm sitting there saying, is there anything I need to come out of agreement with? And the Holy Spirit reminds me of that moment. Like it's just like out of the blue, it's just there in my head. And I'm like, first of all, I had never thought about that from the time I said it. Since? Till the time that I felt like I was reminded of this.
How many years do you think that was?
Probably
10
or 12.
That's
10 or 11. Probably 10 or 11.
That's
thinking
crazy.
About their age difference. So I hadn't thought about it again since then. And I was like, well, I mean, this is very random. That was a joke and whatever. And so I said, okay, Lord, whatever. I come out of agreement with that, but I'm good. We've got our 2 kids. Life is full. Life is busy.
We're not sleeping through the night.
I'm good. So I literally said this to the Lord. Okay, Lord, I come out of agreement with that, but I'm good.
Okay. So now pausing just to, at this point, we'd been married for 9-10 years at this point.
Well, how long? No, we've been married 20 years this year and we have a 6-year-old. So
we had been
married for over 10 years.
Over 10 years. We had been trying in some form or fashion or capacity to get pregnant.
It was 9 years that I feel like we...
Yeah, it was about 9 years of not getting pregnant.
Right.
And I think what's so crazy is what happened next.
So that was on a Sunday. 5 weeks later, we found out I was pregnant. We took this test. Okay, so this was just completely wild. That was a Sunday in mid-June, and July 19th. I think it was June 11th, and then July 19th is when I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And it was just so like...
Well, it was hard to believe.
Hold on. What?
Well, no, because again, it's for more backstory here. Like, I had been for years, and we both had been praying. We had been fasting. We had been standing on scriptures. We had been doing everything we knew to do in our own strength. And
we're drinking the raw milk. We're doing
we're doing all the
stuff that you're supposed to do.
All the stuff you can possibly do to try to help make this happen.
Except for I didn't do the medical intervention.
The one particular medical intervention the doctor recommended. And it was one of those moments for me that like was such a paradigm shifting moment. And like I said at the beginning, I don't understand how this works. Like I don't get it because I have said so many dumb things in my life that I haven't seen hold me back like that.
Right.
But there was something that happened here that, you're not going to be able to convince us that is a coincidence. That after 9 years of trying that,
and then I pray this one prayer.
Immediately. And again, like, because the other thing is, that's really important here, that it's not this formulaic thing. It's like the Holy Spirit dropped that thing into your heart.
Right.
The thing that you needed to come out of agreement with or whatever.
And I mean, I think the thing that people could argue is, well, I mean, it was just because he spoke it at that time, like the message at that time or whatever. And I feel like God is always doing a whole bunch of things at once. And it was like, surely he wanted us to adopt. Surely he had that plan. Yeah. Surely he had the plan for Oliver to be born and for us to have that at that time. And it's like, all these pieces working together of the timing of everything. It was exactly what God wanted it to be.
Yep.
And the way he was born.
Well, like on top of that, like the pain, the struggle that you went through for years, like as we were trying.
Right.
Like, God just works through all that. And he developed things in you. In me, both of us. Like we had to learn what it feels like to pray and it sound like it's echoing back at you.
Well, and like, I mean, there's a whole other testimony in there about once I got pregnant, I freaked out a little bit because I had sort of built up a self-protection against not ever having biological kids to where when I got pregnant, I was like, I mean, I don't know how I'm actually going to give birth. I don't think this baby can actually come out. I have to even have faith that I can deliver this child in any capacity. Yeah. Like I'm talking at all, that it would actually come out of my body at all. Because C-section, epidural, home birth, like all the different things, none of them felt like I could actually do it.
Yeah.
And I think it was that I had developed even in that, like a belief about myself, or a belief about the process or whatever. And that wall had to be torn down. That idol had to be torn down.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there was so much that I think God was doing in that moment that it was just interesting that one little phrase of, okay, I come out of agreement with that thing that I said years ago as a joke, open the door to let him, first of all, produce the miracle of birth, which is a miracle every single time anyway. We know that. But that, and then alongside with all the things that he did within me at the same time.
Yeah, and so there's a whole lot that we're going to kind of expand on with all this as we go through. But like, it's important first to note that we're not prescribing this as a formula and that this is everyone's answer and everyone who isn't getting pregnant is like, this is the answer. This is our experience. This is what we went through. Right. But I do think that there are a lot of us who have spoken things, believed things, come into agreement in some form or fashion with something that isn't God's will, that isn't the word of God, and that it might be beneficial for us to do that. And so we posted some of this story on TikTok and got so much overwhelming positive response in just response to this. And so it just was really exciting that this is striking a chord. Like our testimony, our story here really struck a chord with a lot of people, but there were a handful of people, as is usual on the internet, who had some problems with what we had to say. Yeah. And I want to kind of address those here because I think they're valid questions to ask. So when I first heard this, like when I first experienced this, I should say it that way, like there's part of me is like, that just seems bonkers.
Well, I mean, the thing is you said to me, have you done anything different lately? Because the reason why I found out, right when we found out I was pregnant, you were like, have you done anything different lately? Like, what do you think could have changed? Yeah. Right? Like, that's a very valid question.
No. So you need to go back. So when we found out we were pregnant, I didn't know about any of this.
Yes.
All I know is that we're pregnant. And then I said, did you do anything differently? And then you're like, well, I did this.
And I just told him what I prayed. Because literally, I prayed this prayer and I did not think anything of it. Because I was like, I am content with the 2 kids that we have right now. Like, I feel like my life is full. It's busy. It's good.
It's complete.
It's complete. It felt really good. And I think we had even talked about, do we want to have more kids? Like, at that point, we were like, do we even want to have more kids? Like, where are we at with that? And, of course, you don't make a decision based on, what it's like with a 1-year-old. But, at that point, I think we were kind of like, we definitely need some more time before we're a hard yes.
The point is, I didn't even know.
So,
I'm remembering this now.
So yeah, we get the pregnancy test and it's positive, and he says, "What did you do different?" And I was like, "Well, do you remember that message? Like, that's the only thing I can think of." And Bob says, "Is there anything else you need to tell me?" Because this is
it's
such
hard to believe.
A small thing that had such tremendous results in my life that it was unexpected. It was not something that I was seeking after. It was something that the Lord was trying to do in me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made it different, is that I was not striving after a result. I was just obeying what he asked me to do.
Yeah. So when I first experienced this, like probably a lot of people, like that just sounds crazy. And it's like, I have a hard time believing that again, because how could our words have that much power? And why do they not have that much power every time? Mm-hmm. I don't understand. I don't know the answers to that. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't. But one of the things that a couple commenters mentioned, they were questioning whether or not this is a biblical idea or not. And so I want to address that because, again, like I said at the beginning, I've studied this out in the Bible, and I see that this is definitely a biblical thing through and through. And so, for example, Proverbs 18, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and what does it say? Like, those who something will eat their fruit. I'm trying to see if I got it in here.
Fruit.
Yeah, those who love it and indulge it will eat its fruit and bear the consequences of their words. That's just powerful, But anyway, we're going to get into more of this. But yeah, I wholeheartedly believe, and I believed this before, and now I believe this to another level now after experiencing it, that there is so much power in our words that we don't take them serious enough, okay? And I think there is a problem in 2 different extremes that you can fall into. And so the one extreme is people who speak death, negativity, and align with the enemy's plans. And they speak that over their life, okay? And so again, Proverbs 6:2 is another verse here. So you're snared by the words of your mouth, okay?
Yeah.
And I think we know this intuitively, like, because I think we've seen people, like you kind of mentioned this, people who might walk around and say, no one likes me, and just say that over themselves over and over again. And what begins to happen is you begin to shape your world because you're behaving in a way with that belief that no one likes you. And so then it makes it more likely that no one likes you. So you're kind of like creating that type of thing, And, and so we have that side. And I think everyone kind of understands that. That makes a little bit of sense to us. But the problem with all this, or like the other extreme, let's go to the other extreme. So that's the one extreme. The other extreme is, a bit more positive, but this is the extreme where I think people get nervous, which this would be the name it and claim it thing, or this would be manifesting. That's obviously super in vogue in a lot of the world right now. And the problem with both of those that I see is that it's all about self. It's all about me. What do I want? And so I want the Lambo. I'm going to name and claim the Lambo, or I'm going to manifest that Lambo by whatever, speaking into existence or whatever, just over and over and over again. And it's not about God's will. It's not about his plan. And I think that's the fundamental problem with it. And this is a really hard, because there's so many things like this in the Bible where there's a middle ground that is accurate and that is right. And then there's 2 gutters on both sides of the road that it's easy to fall into.
Right.
And like, for me, I'm determined to find the way to do this, to fully understand the power of our words, and to do it in a biblical way, to take, to use and to utilize what God has given us with our words.
Right.
Right. And so, like, if you read, if we go to John 15:7, it says, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you will ask whatever you wish and it'll be done for you. So now, if you just take the second half of that verse Like, that's crazy. You will ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you.
Right.
Like, that's literally genie in a bottle. Like, is a real thing.
Right.
Ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. But you have to read the first part of that verse, where it says, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, then if you ask whatever you wish,
Right.
it'll be done for you. So, like,
Well, and
that
I think in that
is so
portion of
important.
scripture, the word remain is like, I don't know, like 15 times or something like that, where it's talking about remaining in God, like an exchange.
Isn't that also
of,
abiding? Isn't that another translation?
Yeah, of an exchange of we are tethered together in a way that, so for instance, like I don't make all of my decisions based off of what I want because I'm married to you.
Yep.
Okay. So I use our budget in a way that is honoring to you and does not just take all of the money for myself and do whatever I want with it. Right. And I mean, when we look at our relationship with God, are we thinking about it that way? Is all of our consideration based on what he wants rather than just what I want?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's what this is talking about.
No, I know. And like, so if you look at James 4:3, he specifically says, when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures.
Well,
Like-
and if we can even think about this exact situation, right? Like, and
Yeah.
we're obviously speaking for ourselves and no one else, but there was a lot of me that was like, God, give me a baby now. Why aren't you doing this?
Before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Not
why
at that
aren't you
point.
giving it to me? There was not any
Yep.
like exchange of, Lord, what do you want for our family? How
Yep.
would you like to see this look? I didn't ask any of those questions at all.
Yeah.
I just went to everyone in the Bible who, prayed for a baby you gave them to. But if
Yeah.
you look at Elizabeth,
A lot of
giving
women
birth
had to
to
wait.
John the Baptist, she had to wait a really, really long time
Yeah.
because he needed to be born the same time Jesus. So she's praying for a baby while Mary's not even born yet.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It was like she just had to wait.
Yeah.
Sarah had to wait. Hannah had to wait. I mean, there's so much there in that if we are trusting that the Lord is going to do things in his time because he sees the whole picture.
Yeah.
But I wasn't doing that. I was saying, give me what I want now.
Yeah. No, and that heart posture, that's everything. And I think that's my takeaway in this whole thing is that the things that we are asking, the things that we're speaking, declaring, they need to line up with God's will. Mm-hmm. Like if they don't, then, I think we're off. And I think
Right.
we're falling into one of those gutters,
Right.
And so I think that is the big problem is that we have those two extremes. And like I was saying, like I think there is a biblical sweet ground, like middle ground that like I want to go after. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that could be or what I believe it is. And if you start to look at where this is in the Bible, you do see a lot of different examples where the power of our words are illustrated throughout all this. And one of my favorite examples, I mean, again, the law of the first mention, you go look at the first time words were used, and it's literally the first chapter of Genesis.
Right.
God spoke,
Right.
not to communicate with anybody, but to create. Mm-hmm. Right? That was literally the first use of words, was for the purpose of creation,
Right.
not for communicating. And it could have easily just said that he created the sun and the stars. He
Right.
created the water
But
and the
he
land.
spoke it into existence.
But it said he spoke it, and that was the thing that created it. Okay. And then we see Jesus doing the same thing, modeling the same thing that the Father did, because
Right.
Jesus spoke to blind men. He spoke to sickness, spoke to the winds and the waves, to a fig tree, right? Spoke to dead man. And he spoke in all these situations and created something by what he spoke,
Right.
created the reality that was in alignment with God's will.
He cursed the fig tree.
Yeah.
And it was withered up the next day.
Yeah.
'Cause there
I
were
mean,
no
and
figs
again,
on
like,
it.
I don't even know where to go with that theologically, but I'm just like, we'll set that on the shelf for now. But
No,
the
but you
point
see him
is-
doing it.
Yeah. The point is
Right.
that he modeled what the Father did, and I think as an example to us, okay, I think there are things for us to learn from that, right? And so another example that is just really interesting is Ezekiel 37, the Valley of the Dry Bones, if you remember this. But
Right.
I actually am going to just read this because I think this is so interesting. So this is verse 1 through 13. And so it says, "A hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of the valley. It was full of bones. He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. He asked me, 'Son of man, can these bones live?' I said, O sovereign Lord, I replied, you alone know the answer to that. Then he said to me, speak a prophetic message to these bones and say, dry bones, listen to the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I'm going to put breath into you and make you live again. I will put flesh and muscles on you and cover you with skin. I will put breath into you and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I spoke this message just as he told me. Suddenly, as I spoke, there was a rattling noise all across the valley. The bones of each body came together and attached themselves to complete skeletons.
I cannot believe this.
And then as I watched, muscles and flesh formed over the bones, then skin formed over the bodies, blah, 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 blah. Then he said to me, speak a prophetic message to the winds, son of man. Speak a prophetic message and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, O breath from the four winds. Breathe into these dead bodies so they may live again. So I spoke the message as he commanded me, and breath came into their bodies. They all came to life and stood up on their feet, a great army. And then he said to me, Son of man, these bones represent the people of Israel. They are saying, we have become old dry bones. All hope is gone. Our nation is finished. Therefore, prophesy to them and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. O my people, I will open your graves of exile and cause you to rise again. Then I'll bring you back to the land of Israel. So the point is that, this isn't a real thing that happened, but what we see in here is he's telling him to speak, and he's telling him what this represents. And so there's something here. Again, we see this all throughout, and even in the New Testament, one of the most, again, crazy verses that I'm going to read from Mark. And this is Mark 11:23. This is right after he cursed that fig tree. And he says, I assure you, and this is in the Amplified Version, I assure you and most solemnly say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be lifted up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart in God's unlimited power, but believes that what he says is going to take place, it will be done for him in accordance with God's will. For this reason, I'm telling you, whatever things you ask for in prayer, in accordance with God's will, believe with confident trust that you have received them, and they will be given to you.
Right. And that's the thing right there, in accordance with God.
And that's why I read the Amplified Version, because I love that, that it ties that back, it connects that back to what we were saying before. It's like, we can't just run out and just speak whatever we want if it's not in alignment with God's will. But if it is, I think we need to be saying the right things. We need to be speaking life. We need to be speaking the Bible over our situations.
Well, and I just heard Jackie Hill Perry say, sometimes I'm praying for a mountain to be moved when I'm actually the mountain and God's trying to move me.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a huge piece right there that I don't think is kept in mind often enough. We have to be praying the will of God. And I mean, in some ways it is, and in some ways I think I have heard at some points people say, yeah, but this is the will of God because it says this in the Bible, da, 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 da. And it's like, yes. However, what you're saying is that you're demanding that it is on your timeline.
Yep.
You're demanding that it is done the way you want it done.
Yep.
And I mean, I have been guilty of doing this, of thinking, but it says that I can pray whatever I want and it will be done for me if I don't doubt in my heart. And I'm believing you and I'm believing you and I'm believing you. And there's been almost this like, I'm owed something.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a difference. Like, when we're praying for someone who's sick, and sometimes they get healed and sometimes they don't. And and that's the frustrating thing. And sometimes you don't get healed as fast as you want or whatever.
Right.
And when it's through a posture of demanding of God, I think we're off when we're doing that.
Super off.
So.
Yeah, but the other side of that coin is we're still supposed to ask God for it.
Yep.
But there needs to be this
submission and yielding to his will, his timing.
To his will, his timing,
You know?
and also to the fact that we just don't know it all.
Yeah. And that his perspective is bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
That he has a bigger story in mind, that things are not over, right? We're still alive, we're still living. There's things that are not finished. It's not wrapped up in a bow yet. And ultimately, we have the victory in Jesus. Yeah.
And I'm going to read you another Bible verse on this too, because I think this is also really interesting to me. So Romans 10, it says, because if you acknowledge and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in his heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. So isn't that so interesting? that it's not just believing in Jesus, but you
It's
have to
you confess
confess. You have to say
Right.
out loud that he is Lord. You know, and what's the other passage about? That's how to identify if it's a demonic spirit, right? Is if it
Right.
will not
Yeah,
confess.
if you should ask it.
Like, and so isn't that so interesting? Like there's something there about our words and
About the words, yeah.
And there's science that backs this up, which is crazy. There was a study that was done at Yale that showed that people who say that their health is poor, okay, are 400% more likely to die in the next 4 years than those who say that they are healthy.
What?
Even if they are equally healthy at the time. Isn't that fascinating? So not like some like backyard, hillbilly study. This is at Yale. And they
Oh my
found that
gosh.
people who did a survey of all these people and the people who said that they were in good health and the ones who didn't, even if they were in the same spot,
That's
are 400% more likely to die in the next 4 years.
Wow.
And there were other studies that mirrored that as well. And,
400% more likely to die in the next 4 years?
Yep. And there were 5 other studies that involved 23,000 participants that mirrored that same result.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, that's fascinating.
I'm in
right?
great health.
I am in great health too, honey.
I'm going to live so old. People are going to look at me and be like, dang, how old is she? I'm going to be that old.
Yeah. So anyway, and that's the thing. I think this is something that's so easy to get out of balance with this and to get weird. And like, I just refuse to deny what I see in the Bible about this and this experience that we had personally that the Lord brought us through to, I think for us, highlight the power of our words and what that looked like. And so, going back to your case, like I think for you specifically, because again, I don't know God's will for the number of babies that he has for everyone and all that stuff, but for you and for us, he had a baby for us. And so I think that's why the Holy Spirit brought that back up to your remembrance. And what you had said in that moment violated certain things in the word that God had maybe said. One of the verses I was stood on is that my wife will be a fruitful vine, and
You're such a gardener.
Just come to pass. But anyway, other verses as well, where it's like, for whatever reason, you'd spoken something, you'd come into some agreement with it. And, and the Lord is like, we need to fix this, and then we
need to fix this. And I think the timing of it was interesting because I don't know how much to share on this, but there was just so much that happened out of that experience. I feel like each one of our children being born, there was so much that happened out of each of those experiences. And that one was no different. I think having him at the time that we did changed the path of my life in so many ways because of all the things that had led up to it. I don't know that I can actually give birth to this child. Like, there's something when a woman gives birth that is so empowering because it is something that is very mysterious and feels like almost everyone tells horror stories about giving birth. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, it was great. There were no problems. It was awesome. But when I look at it as a whole, there were actually some significant challenges that came out of it. But when I look at it as a whole, there was a purification process in it.
Yeah.
That pulled out some of my calling, pulled out more of who I am supposed to be, pulled out some selfishness and some idols, like tore down some idols that I had. I mean, there was just so much that happened in it that it was like, I would not have been ready for it before. He used it at the right time because of what had led up to it. Yep. And so, if I had gotten my way earlier, it just wouldn't have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm just convinced that God's not just ever doing one thing at a time. It's like he's painting the Sistine Chapel, only on a much grander scale, obviously, all the time in everyone's lives. And in within each little scenario, you're seeing whoa, I didn't think when you were doing that all of this other stuff was going to come out of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that the exact timing of that one little thing meant this big picture was going to happen. Yep. We can't always see it, but he is seeing it, and he's seeing it all the time. I mean, just thinking about it that way and recalling what he's done and remembering what he's done builds my faith.
Yeah.
Like
That's
this is
so
one of
cool.
those things that stirs my faith up of like, I can trust him because I'm seeing things now that are not going the way I want them to go.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I think back to, oh, that one didn't go the way I wanted it to go originally, but
But look at what he did.
look at what happened in the end.
Yep.
And it's not even the end yet.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
only
that's good.
43. I got a lot of life left to live.
Amen. So the Jewish culture does this pretty well. And I'm speaking as a broad generalization here. I've read a couple different books about one in particular by a guy named Craig Hill, and it's like the power of a parent's blessing. And so he studied the Jewish culture really deep and just noticed that they have different markers in life, in rhythms of blessing their kids and speaking life over them. And this is, again, like from...
Is it almost ritualistic to them? Like it's just something that they do, right?
Yeah, because I mean, he said like it's just a common
Kind
thing
of
in
like
Jewish culture to,
in
on
America-
Sabbath or on Shabbat, to speak a blessing over your wife
Right.
and your kids.
Yeah.
You know?
So kind of like in America, every 4th of July, we got fireworks. Like it is
Yeah,
just the thing that their
I don't know
culture
well
does.
enough, but it's been part of their culture throughout thousands of years, and it's
Right.
maintained, not in all of them, but in
Sure.
many of them, enough of them.
Right.
So it's just very different than, what we tragically see sometimes where, parents might speak to their kids and say, you're never going to amount to anything. You're worthless. You're whatever, all this stuff. And like speaking death and
Right.
I want to be a father who's speaking life and speaking the truth
Me too.
of who God calls them to be and
Yeah.
who he's created them to be.
God help us.
Yeah. And it's not, I'm not saying this is easy, like because
Or
it's
that we're
not
perfect,
like,
right.
it's really, and I don't think that any of us are perfect in it. And I also don't I really hope that everything we've been talking about doesn't create this like step on eggshells, like get nervous about every single thing you say. Because again, like
Right.
I've had so many things, like you have, where you've said things that were just really dumb. I shouldn't have said that. But it didn't mean that it kept you from X, Y, or Z. Like I specifically remember being a teenager and be like, I don't want to live past 40. I remember saying that I wanted to die at 40 because I didn't want to be old. And like
No, but I do remember having the conversation as you're like, I just remembered that I said that. I'm going to get out of agreement with that right now.
Absolutely. I'm like, I'm not taking any chances because now I want to be alive. I want to live till 90,
Right.
But my point is that I didn't magically die right at 40 or whatever the thing is, So I don't understand this. Like that's just where we are. And if you do understand, you can tell me exactly how all these pieces work together. Great. Like, please let me know. But
No,
it's
but
just
there's
my
something
observation
here.
that there is something here. There is
Right.
power in our words. Like you cannot deny it. You just cannot deny it.
Well,
and
if
that's what we're trying to highlight.
If we're doing the thing of abiding in him and him abiding in us, all we need to do is ask him. Like that was how this came up for me.
Yep.
Is I just asked him, is there anything you need me to come out of agreement with?
Yep.
And I wasn't even really trusting or believing that he would tell me. I thought I was good. And you might be good, but it doesn't hurt to ask him. He
Yeah.
knows everything and he has a plan.
Yeah, I want to like make this practical a little bit, and so walk you through. I think last year I put together a list of Bible verses that I saw that kind of connected some of these dots in terms of praying, and created a little bit of a checklist of how to pray and speak life biblically, and a filter to kind of look at the things that you're praying and that you're speaking and declaring. And so in these verses, I'll highlight different aspects of it. So like I mentioned before, 1 John 5:14 through 15, you can write these verses down if you want. It says, this is a confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we will have what we have asked of him. Right? So again, there's a caveat there that if we ask anything according to his will, okay, so we have to have that there. And again, we mentioned John 15:7 before. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, you can ask whatever you wish and it'll be done for you. Okay? Matthew 18:19, if two of you agree on earth about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. So
Right.
now there's that piece. It's like you find two who are in agreement. John 14:13 says, I will do whatever you ask in my name, So that's why we're asking in Jesus' name, so that the
Right.
Father may be glorified in the Son. So those are a few verses here, but like this checklist, I would say is the first one is John 15:17. Am I abiding in him? Okay. So when I go to ask something, to speak something, to declare something over my life or situation or whatever, am I abiding in him? Number two is what I am saying aligned with God's will. Okay. So this is from 1 John 5:14-15. James 4:3 we mentioned before. Are my motives pure? Why am I asking? Am I just asking this for selfish purposes or for the benefit of God's will? Mark 11:23, where it specifically says, speak to the mountain. And it's like, do I believe that I have received it? Because that's part of what it mentioned in there. It says, I assure you most solemnly say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be lifted up and thrown in the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says is going to take place, it'll be done for him in accordance with God's will. Okay? So do I believe that I've received it? All right, so that's number 4. Number 5 is, am I in agreement with others? Matthew 18:19, where 2 or more agree
Right.
on anything on earth. And then 2 other ones, I haven't mentioned this one yet, but Philippians 4:6, am I praying with thanksgiving? Where it specifically tells us to be praying with thanksgiving. And then finally, John 14:13, am I asking in Jesus' name? And so this has been a helpful checklist for me just to make sure that the things I'm saying, the things I'm speaking are lined up with God's will and his word, which I think is how you do this right.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't just take one of these verses, like especially Mark 11:23, it's like, I don't think you can just grab it by itself. And whoever says this mountain be lifted up and thrown in the sea, but doesn't doubt in his heart, but believes it. Like, I think they all need to work together, right?
Yeah. Well, and I want to add to that checklist.
Great.
The thing that I think we had wrong in the beginning was that we had a hyper fixation on the thing that we wanted. Like that to me is like we were seeking the provision
isn't that an idol?
over the provider.
Isn't that an idol?
Yes.
I think having that
Of course
baby
it
was an idol.
was an idol.
That got in the way between our relationship with God.
Right. And I think that's why I think that was in the way.
Yeah.
That was for sure in the way. And he loves me enough to not allow me to have something between me and him. Or at least, I've asked him to do that. I don't know if that's something that we need to ask him to do, but I've asked him to do that. I don't want anything in between us. But it does happen, even still, that there's something that goes on in my mind that I have to battle to keep him in first place.
Yep.
And it is a constant thing. But when you ask him, would you stay in first place? Help me to keep you in first place.
Yeah.
Then we have to accept that the accordance with his will part exists and that he is not going to dismiss that prayer,
Yeah.
which is in accordance with his will. That we would keep him first, that I would keep him first in my life. So he's not going to negate that prayer and give me the thing that I want just because I just want it right now.
Yeah.
And that is actually the goodness of God
Yep.
at work in our life, rather than just feeling like he doesn't hear us.
Yeah.
It's actually like he's like, I actually did hear you, and I am answering your prayer.
Yeah. It's just not in
It's
your
just
timetable.
not what you want right now.
Not in your
It's
speed.
not what your flesh wants.
Yeah.
Your spirit wants it. Your flesh is weak right now. So trust him that he'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so bottom line, this isn't magic. This isn't hocus pocus stuff, but I think our words are more powerful than we realize. And when they're aligned with God's will, we can move mountains. Like, I think that's what it comes down to. And so anyway, like we said at the beginning, I think this has deep implication to our finances. And I think the main reason why is because I see so many people that have spoken things like, I'm just bad with money. We're always broke. It's always hand to mouth. There's never enough. And along with that, I think there are questions, like the questions that we ask are the ones that we find answers to, And so if we keep asking the question, why do things always go wrong for me? Again, you find what you are looking for.
Right.
And it's like, again, so much science behind that. It's like, the red car thing or whatever. It's like once you start looking for that, or once you get a certain type of car, like you see it because you're now looking for it. So it's the same way with when we're asking those wrong questions, like, Why do things always go wrong for me? Why, blah, 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 whatever. We find answers to that. And so we need to reframe those questions as well. So in terms of our finances, like what I think this looks like, that I think is really important, is to be speaking life into speaking the truth of God's word, And so, for example, rather than declaring that, I'm always broke, there's never enough to pay the bills, blah, blah, blah. Why not declare what it says in 2 Corinthians 9? Where he said he's able to give you an abundance for every good work. Not an abundance to buy 6-pack of Lambos, again, unless that is the good work he has for you. Maybe it is.
Love to bring up Lambos.
Well, whatever you want it to be. But, and again, and I'm not judging. It's like, maybe that is, what the Lord has for you to do. And that's completely cool. But I'm just saying, for most of us, that's probably not it. Like whatever thing is that we're craving, it's like the abundance is for the good work.
Right.
And I think when we understand that, and again, this isn't in a way where it's like, this doesn't mean that you never get to enjoy anything in life and God doesn't ever give you anything that you would enjoy.
Right.
But when we understand that in accordance with his will, it's like, all right, let's speak that over our financial life rather than the constant declarations of there's never enough money, I'm always broke, the budget's too tight, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, whatever. Like, and again, like I was even hesitant to record this podcast and to talk all about this because it's so easy to take it in the wrong direction. And honestly, for us to be misquoted about this and turn it into something that's absolutely not. This isn't something where it's like, oh, you're going to listen to this podcast and then go speak something, and probably not. Like next week, all of a sudden, all your financial problems are solved, Like, I don't think it works like that. But I think when we do line our words up with God and we are patient, we work with him, we're pushing back whatever those negative words and beliefs and thoughts and all of that stuff, we're pushing that back and we're getting in alignment with what God says. And and again, I don't know why God set it up this way, but for whatever reason, we see the power of our words all throughout the word, and there's something that he's doing there with them.
For sure.
So my challenge to you is to ask yourself, what are you speaking over your life? What have you been speaking over your finances, over your family? Are they aligned with his word? Or are they aligned with fear? Or are they aligned with past circumstances? Or in my family, we've always been X.
Right.
And in my family, we will never be X.
Well, yeah. And also take a minute. Like this literally happened to me in 1 to 2 minutes where I said, is there anything I need to come out of agreement with? That was it. It was 1 to 2 minutes.
That would be a great prayer.
Very short.
Pause the podcast. We're about done anyway. Pause the podcast. Pray that prayer with us.
Set yourself a timer. Do it with your family tonight at the dinner table.
Yeah.
I mean,
and ask the Lord.
Just ask the Lord.
And it's like, and there very well might not be anything. But if there is, then just come out of agreement with it. I mean, your prayer was really simple. It's like, Lord, I come out of agreement with that. And speak the word over that situation.
I didn't even speak the word. I said, okay, Lord, I come out of agreement with that.
But let's speak the word on top of it. Right?
That would be even better. All I'm saying is he is looking. What it felt like to me was that he was looking for a way to get to me.
Yeah.
After all those years.
Yeah.
He was still trying to get to me because he had a plan that was better than mine. Because remember, my follow-up was, I'm good.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the position of being like, I want more kids. I didn't even still really desire that. But I'm telling you, it's just crazy because the blessing that kid is in our family
the will of the Lord. And that's how it is. Like with God's will.
It blows my mind.
Yeah. He knows what we want more than we do. We think we know what we want.
Right.
But God really knows.
Yes.
Anyway. All right. So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for hanging with us on this one. And I pray that this is received in the spirit with which we are trying to communicate our experience and what we have learned. And again, like I've said a whole bunch, we don't claim to have the full understanding of how all these pieces work together, but I think it's important enough that I wanted to bring it up and have a conversation about it.
Because it completely changed our lives.
Radically changed our lives.
Right.
And that's just one example. And there have been others that we weren't able to talk about yet.
Right.
But anyway, thank you for hanging out with us. Pass this along to anyone who needs it.
Yeah.
And
See you in the next episode.
See you next episode.
I'm only on page 13 and I've already underlined a zillion things and I want to cry in a good way. This is what Kelly said after reading our book, Simple Money, Rich Life.
Yeah. Well, those first 13 pages, I mean, they're going to do it to you. They're going to do it to you. So be sure to check out the first 13 pages.
And did you know that you can get a copy of this award-winning book for free? You can get it on Amazon, but we so believe that the church needs this message that if you can cover shipping, we'd love to cover the cost of the book and send you a free copy.
All you need to do is go to seedtime.com/free to get yours.